I'm happy about.
Howdy, how are you? You hear me? No.
Hey, how's it going?
Okay, how are you?
Can you hear me, Alex?
I can hear
I
you.
can't hear you.
You can't hear me? All right, hold on.
No.
Uh, all right, how's this? Can you hear me? Still nothing? No. Okay, I'll log off and log back in.
Hey, Alex.
Alex was just on. He I couldn't hear him.
Oh,
So he signed off and he's gonna sign back on.
okay, good. Good, good.
So
How are you doing?
I can't hear you either, though. So now I'm wondering if it's me.
Oh,
Here we go. This is what happens. Say something, Margaret. Say something.
can you hear me now?
Yeah, all right.
Okay.
Now I feel bad because I feel like that was my fault now.
Well, I'm glad you tested it out, a little bit ahead of time.
Yeah, me too. It was oh, we're recording. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome and thank you for joining us for today's webinar, Naturalist in Residence. We are very glad to have you all with us. Just a few things before we get started, a few housekeeping notes so we get everything running smoothly. Everyone can just keep their microphone muted during the presentation to avoid any interruptions. Also, we kindly ask that you remain respectful to our presenters and fellow attendees throughout the session. We will be reserving some time at the end of our Q&A, which we'll be monitoring the chat throughout the session. So if you have any questions as the presentation's going on, feel free to drop your questions in the chat, or during the Q&A session, you can unmute yourself and ask your question. And finally, a recording of today's webinar, along with the presentation slides, will be shared with all of anyone who registered afterwards. So it will also be posted on the SLI website. And with that, I'm going to introduce Margaret Woodruff, the director from Charlotte Public Library and also SLI board member, who's going to introduce our speaker today. Take it away, Margaret.
Thanks, Alex. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm delighted that Alex Geller from the Red Hook Public Library can be here to talk about their amazing Naturalist in Residence program. Um, he has been the director at that library since 2023 and been working in libraries for over a decade with a little detour into economic development, he said, in New York City. I asked him what his favorite book was. He said this year it's Ruth Ozecki's The Book of Form and Emptiness, which I also recommend. And he says his brain still tells him he has a green thumb, even though he's killed every houseplant he's ever owned. He has one request that we all put away our cell phones and do our best not to check our emails. Since the point of the Naturalist program is to practice being present, we could get a little experimentation in with that during his presentation. And with that, I'm going to welcome Alex. Thanks again for being here.
All right, thanks, Margaret. Thanks, Alex. Can y'all hear me okay? A nod? Okay, perfect. I apologize ahead of time. I'm doing camera off for this little bit. I've been struck by, but what told the group before everyone logged on is the Lego Club flu. So feeling a little bit out of it today, but we got a lot to cover in a short amount of time. So let's get into it. Okay, naturalist in residence, or why is everyone into birding now? Um, they say when you hit your 30s, every guy has to decide between two personalities. Are they going to get really into World War II history, or are they going to get into birding? And you can tell by the topic which one I chose. Um, but, no offense to World War II history. I'm sure that's fun. I joined Red Hook Library in 2023 and set out to better understand, how the community viewed itself, what they valued, what was missing. And Red Hook, like many rural, suburban, and exurban communities across the country, had experienced what I would call like this large influx of city people moved to the community since 2020. And I can say that because I did come here from Brooklyn. I am part of that problem. And we now had this interesting mix of neighbors, those who had been here for generations with, streets named after their families, and those who were brand new. And while each, might have had their different hopes and dreams and reasons for joining our community, the thing they cherished most, what they stayed for, why they came to Red Hook, was for and because nature. If Red Hook had a tagline, it could be Red Hook. This is where nature is. Now, we're going to problematize our definition of nature in just a second because, I think this program works probably even better in a city environment than just in, our rural communities. But let's get back to Red Hook for a second. If the natural world is this connection between new residents and old, how should the library, which views itself as this community connector, not only engage but lead here, especially with a limited budget and limited staff capacity? So, like any good librarian, I did some research. And here, I think it's really important to note that I did not create the concept of a naturalist in residence. The Madison Public Library, Mass Audubon, Seed Keepers, and many other organizations across the country have some version of this. And I honestly invite all of you to steal this idea. But with one caveat, if you live within 50 miles of my library, like don't, or like change the name or something, just so like we can keep it, people to understand which one is which. Um, but when I went researching, I was really looking for an anchor program that was hyper local, that blended art, history, ecology, and storytelling to help people rethink what nature means and rethink our place in it. Because I believe when people understand their local ecology, but more importantly, see themselves as part of it, they make more informed and equitable environmental decisions. All right. A program in 8 parts. What is nature? What is a naturalist? Selecting your naturalists, designing your program, community partners, complementary services, hold harmless reading lists, and Q&A. Um, Okie dokie, let's get into it. First of all, pop quiz. Is the chat function working? Okay, great. All right. Who said this? In God's wildness lies the hope of the world, the great, fresh, unblighted, unredeemed wilderness. I'll give everybody 30 seconds to chat. Who do you think says, "In God's wildness lies the hope of the world, the great, fresh, unblighted, unredeemed wilderness"? I can't see the chat, so I'm just assuming everyone's typing. Margaret, would you mind reading a few of the answers? Looks like you're muted.
Let's try that again. John Muir is a strong favorite. Walt Whitman, Henry David Thoreau, Roosevelt, Aldo Leopold.
Yes, it
Um,
could have been all of them. That's so true. It was John Moyer. Good job. So I think there is this prevailing idea that nature only counts when it is pristine or untouched. The idea that nature is something we need to go to experience, this wildness, this hope of the world, unredeemed, unblighted. This is wrong. In cities, nature persists in fragments and systems woven into everyday life. Street trees breaking sidewalks, invasive plants on freeway edges, deer adapting to neighborhoods, weather patterns shaped by infrastructures, water systems hidden behind concrete. Nature is not gone in the city. It has simply changed form and learned to coexist with human systems. Even in rural communities, where nature is, we are constantly shaping nature from setback requirements to stormwater management to garbage collection and disposal. So if nature is present in our streets, homes, and infrastructure, then environmental care is embedded in daily community decisions. From zoning and water use to transportation and housing, it is not distant, it is not other. So here we get into the meat and potatoes. Instead of asking what is nature, we should be asking what nature is it? And then how do we use nature? How do we change nature? How does nature react? How do we react back? How do we imagine nature? Who uses and changes and imagines nature? And often the most vital question of all, how sustainably, how fairly, how well? Ultimately, rethinking nature is essential to reimagining the future of your community. And who will lead us in this rethinking? The naturalist-in-residence, of course. So let's get into this. A naturalist is simply someone curious about the world around them, and their goal is to bring environmental knowledge into everyday life. Our first naturalist was Susan Fox Rogers, who I like to consider like a close friend now, and she was one of the Hudson Valley's preeminent birders. Before starting as our naturalist, Susan regularly took a group of Bard College students, we're right by Bard College, on these walks in the North Tivoli Bays. And if you haven't visited Red Hook or Bard, highly recommend. It is truly stunning. And so her students would look over the bay toward the Hudson River, the Catskill Mountains off in the distance, and she would set up the scope and they'd admire these like big white common mergansers floating between the cattails and the phragmites. And very typical of, all of us in these with these like beautiful vistas, they all took out their phones and started taking photographs. It's sort of like a Frederick Church painting come to life. It's like truly phenomenal. But as they gathered to leave one day, a student who was about to graduate turned to her and said, I wish I had known this was here." That offhand remark is what inspired her residency. Enjoying the natural beauty of this region and working to ensure that the natural beauty remains intact, whether through picking up garbage, building trails, saving salamanders as they cross the road, which is, how you spend a really fun Saturday night here in Red Hook, is the center of her life. It's the center of many of our lives. And what she wanted to share with our community had less to do with being able to name bird songs, though that was important, and I got pretty good at it, and then I stopped practicing, and now I'm not so good at it anymore. But what was really important for this program is to have people come together to pause, reflect, and be present. For her residency, library patrons met every Monday morning at 7 a.m. And when she told me she wanted to host these walks at 7 a.m., I told her she was crazy. No one's going to come to a program at 7 a.m. every single Monday morning for 3 months. I was very wrong. We had at least 15 to 20 people at every single one of these walks. And we'll get into how you structure these. But on these morning walks, we saw eagles, I saw baby owls, there were winter wrens, there were these like rusty blackbirds. There were wood ducks. I mean, it was truly astonishing. But beyond the joy of seeing and hearing these treasures, it was much more of a joy for me and for all the participants to watch Bard students talking with local birders, talking with Red Hook residents, intergenerational as we walked and explored. Witnessing this diverse human community weave together is as heartwarming as hearing the peepers calling their loved ones from a vernal pool. The naturalist, just like a library, is a convener. And when we are invited to notice together, we can better reflect together. So once you are invited to notice, it is much easier to bring that into everyday practice. Even urban environments are full of ecosystems, histories, and relationships we often overlook. Freeways, reservoirs, power lines, parks, housing developments, they all blend natural and human systems into these hybrid ecosystems, all ready to be explored. Nature permeates everything, but the natural world is inseparable from human infrastructure and decisions, which begs the question, what does it mean to live responsibly with nature in the 21st century, especially since different communities experience nature differently? If you are concerned about climate resilience and environmental justice, the naturalist can provide new stories, new understandings, and more inclusive perspectives on humans live with the natural world. And together, we can imagine new relationships with land, water, and one another as climate change forces us all to adapt. All right, let's go touch some grass. All right, so you decided to do this program. Congratulations. Where do you begin? So the executive, that's what I usually look like on the top right. Unfortunately, that's not what I look like right now. Very sick. So you can do this in many different ways, and different organizations will select their naturalists in very different ways. So I just want to go through a couple options that you can choose for what's best for your community and what's best given like your capacity. One thing you can do is survey or crowdsource, hold focus groups, look at your programming in the past, what was like of interest to your community. And really what I want to say about this program is like, a naturalist is someone curious about the world around them. You can take this in myriad directions. Our first one was about birding. Our second one was about the art of walking. Our next one is going to be about bushcrafts and survivalism. I mean, it can really run the gamut. So one thing you can do is select a topic and then find experts in that field. You can form a committee. Sometimes I don't recommend that, but like, whatever, however your organization chooses these things, bring it to like a programming committee. You can look at your collection data, what's really hitting in your collection. You or your director, if you're the director, choose whoever you like. That's sometimes works out, sometimes doesn't. And finally, what I would really suggest if this is an option for you is find a community partner that you really want to work with and have this sort of be a partner presentation. So if there's like an environmental group or an advocacy group, or you want to work with like your local government entities who do this work and sort of share and collaborate, this is a great opportunity to bring them into the fold. And what I also want to really make clear is that this isn't just nature walks. Everyone can do a nature walk. It's very nice. We can walk from our library and look out into the community. This is an anchor program. You are building things around and through this. Okay, so you decided that you're going to do this. You picked how you're going to do this. What should you be looking for? Who makes a good naturalist in residence? First and foremost, they are an expert. They don't have to be the most knowledgeable, but they need to have some level of expertise on the topic. And this is where I would really say hone in on a specific topic. There are lots of what like naturalists who might be good fits who can speak about a lot of things sort of well. Find someone who can speak about one thing really well, or really have them focus in. I mean, I just had this conversation with our new naturalists in residence for 2026, and it was 45 minutes of what this could be. But the thing is, when you're promoting it, when you're trying to share what this is going to be, how you're going to highlight this in your newsletters, in your social media, how you're going to build these programs, it really needs to focus on a single topic. Another really key thing is like they should be local. I mean, this is a hyper local program. We're not trying to like go seek out nature. We want someone who lives and works within your community who can speak for your community. As many people want, they want someone who already uses the library. These people are going to be spokespeople for your library. And if they don't use your library, then they're probably not the best person for this position because at the end of the day, the whole point is not just to get people out of your community and get into the community and show face, it's to get people to connect this work with the library and connect all of the other things your libraries are doing well with these new community members who are experiencing this. Um, Another thing is like I wouldn't focus this on just like a kids program or just an adult program. I think these work really well if you're looking for sort of these like intergenerational connectors, something that can be just as good for adults as kids. I mean, our 7 a.m. walk, the youngest person who joined us was 8, the oldest was like 82. Um, for a walking group, same thing. People walk at different paces, but really the whole point is to be present. This is a really good opportunity to bring families together. You can do like like if you have a topic, we're doing bush crafts, for instance, and one of the things we're probably going to do is how to start a fire. Not something you probably want your 5-year-olds to be doing at the library. So you can really have specific programs as part of this residency targeted to different age groups. But when you're planning this overall, it's really good to think intergenerationally. And a team player, like they're the spokesperson, they're the they're going to connect with this program to the library, but they need to then connect it back to your other staff members, to your other libraries. Okay. Here we go. Sample budget. I mean, I love programs where it's just like, this is plug and play. I want this to be plug and play for everybody. Once again, steal this idea, name it something different if you live outside of 50 miles from me. This is sort of what it's going to cost to run it. You can do it for much less. You could do it for much more. This is also a really good thing to get a grant for. This is something that foundations will want to put their names on. Or if you're working with like a county or a town or a city, it's something that they would potentially throw money at. You know, we don't have a big budget, and I got a grant for $7,500 to launch this program because we were needing to build out our library of things. But if you already have binoculars or hiking backpacks, or you have field guides, or you have a really deep collection, you can like take out some of these things. For the naturalist stipend, we were paying about $50 an hour, which is pretty standard for what we do. You know, if you get like a big macher in your community, you have a bigger budget, you want to pay them more. But it was basically $2,500, and this covered 3 months of Monday morning walks, every other Thursday a talk, and a few Saturdays a week, plus the time to like write newsletters, marketing, media appearances. Um, but once again, maybe you have someone who wants to volunteer to do this. All of this is very flexible. The indirect costs, I think, is something that lots of people forget when they're creating their budget is like, how much staffing time is this really going to take? Because you need someone who's organizing it, planning it, promoting it. It's going to take a lot of hands. So really, please remember to include that when you're creating your budget. You are not working for free. Your staff is not working for free. This needs to be included. And also really important, have snacks if you're going to go out for a walk, have water. Um, it's really important to make sure that everybody feels comfortable, especially if you're leaving the confines of your library. Okay. Once again, this is all recorded. You can take a screenshot. You can reach out to me if you have questions about like how we like what we spend money on for our budget. But I will say, you know, if the topic is birding, you're going to get a lot of bird books. If the topic is bushcrafts, you're going to get a lot of things on like how to start a fire and maybe like season 1 through 40 of Survivor. I mean, who knows? It's whatever works for you. All right. So this was year one program schedule. And the other thing I want to know is like this was year one program schedule. Year two was completely different. Year three will be completely different. It's really about like the topic, what they're presenting, the capacity of your presenter, and managing expectations. So we sort of like hit it out of the park in year one, which really, you know, set us up for years 2, 3, and 4 to really have high expectations. You know, every morning at 7 a.m. We even did 2 4 a.m. walks, which once again, I was like, who's going to come to the library at 4 a.m.? Apparently 20 people. I will say half of them were BART students who were hungover, who I don't think went to sleep the night before. So it did smell heavily of cigarettes, but like we got to hear owls and that was really cool. Um, the nature talks, so like you're doing this program, you're out in the field, you get your hands on. I will say the presentations that we did not have a huge turnout. I mean, people, this is like people want to get hands-on experience. You might want to do like if they have a book, you might want to do a book talk. If they have other like community partners themselves who they want to bring in to present. So we did a whole conversation with the FDR librarian on like FDR's love of birds. That had really good attendance. But for most of these talks, it was very hit or miss. They really wanted that consistency, that hands-on experience. And then Saturdays, like many of you know, are always really tough. People have other things going on. So those were pretty hit or miss. But I will say consistency, consistency, consistency for how you're promoting this and how you're running this. Okay, here are some community partners that we worked with in year one and that we were able to build because of this program. So as I mentioned, we got a grant. It was from the Asienzo Family Foundation. So our program is the Asienzo Naturalist-in-Residence. Once again, really easy naming rights. We really wanted to build our relationship with our village, our town, and our county. So we worked with individuals in different departments to help with promotion and getting access to different locations throughout our community. Bard College was there. We really, as all public librarians wish to have like the best relationship with the public schools. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And you keep on trying over and over and over and over again. And this one is a really great opportunity to partner with your local schools because a lot of them have curriculum based on some of the things that you're probably doing. So it's a good tie-in. And especially if you're doing advocacy later on, this is a really great program for your electeds to be photographed in. It's always good to get electeds photographed, doing things with the library when you're going to advocate for more funding. So this is a really good opportunity for that. All right, so when I mean anchor program, I mean anchor program. We were able to do so many other things because we launched this program because people connected this service, this topic with the library. So with our naturalists, we were able to launch a seed library. We were able to work with the county on a recycling story time. We added like an air quality meter. We changed all of our library cards to the animals that live in our backyard. So you could choose between a blue heron, a box turtle, a beaver. I haven't seen the beaver in 2 years, but I'm sure they're still doing fine in my heart of hearts. We ran a bike program. We started a native pollinator garden. And you can see our newest naturalist in residence in the bottom right corner. That is Randy. One thing that I wanted to see was getting more like teens and young men, like specifically at our library, because I like to joke the library is really good at getting you under 5 and over 65. And so this was like the target that we do not see. We did fly fishing. We fly fished in our parking lot. You've never smelled so many, men who needed to learn about deodorant. But it was an incredible program. And now we're going to do more programs with him and learn about deodorant usage. Okay, finally, or I don't know what else is in my slides. Once again, sorry, I do have the flu. Um, Really, if you're going to leave your library, check in with your insurance agency and talk through like hold harmless and informed consent. People can get injured on walks, and you do not want to be held liable for this. If you're working with a naturalist who has their own LLC, they should probably have their own insurance. If they don't, and you want this to be on the library, really have this conversation with your board about the amount of liability you're willing to put into this. Even though our walks we went like a quarter of a mile for bird walking and it took 2 hours because it's a lot of stopping and starting. You're still going out where there's tripping hazards. People could get overheated. People could, tear a knee. It's really important to get this right with your board and with your insurance agencies, or don't tell them that you do you. Okay, finally, I have some suggested reading, things that will help you think through like different options when you're coming up with your topic. First and foremost, Learning the Birds, Susan Fox Rogers, our inaugural naturalist in resident. You should read this. Her other book, My Reach, about kayaking the Hudson River is beautiful. I cried multiple times. Just incredible author. Flight maps. So Jenny Price, she wrote this incredible article that like got me thinking about this topic to begin with, which was called 13 Ways of Seeing Nature in LA. And if you haven't read that article, it's pretty short. I highly recommend. It's free online. I believe it's Believer Magazine. Just put it into like a search engine. It's a really great way to rethink sort of like what nature is in your community, how we react to nature, especially if you are coming from a city, a different way to approach how you're going to be talking about this when you're running this type of program. We have Andrea Wolf's The Invention of Nature. Just once again, like by naming things, we are controlling it and we're trying to figure out how we can best live with nature. Catherine Coleman Flowers, Waste. I think this is a great program, especially if you're really concerned about inequities in your community, about who's most harmed by the climate crisis or by, lead in drinking water. It's a really great way to highlight those inequities, especially if you want to have a strong focus and leadership in your community about trying to challenge all these inequities. And I'm blocked. Okay. And then finally, a great 600-page book that everyone should read, The Ministry for the Future, which I think Barack Obama says the best science fiction, nonfiction novel I've ever read. It is truly incredible. It was both incredibly traumatic and hopeful and sad, and I've never been so ready for the coming climate apocalypse as before. I'm not going to survive it, but at least this gave me some hope for the future. Okay, I think that's everything I got. So I am going to figure out how to stop sharing my screen. Uh, Stop share. That'll do it. Okay, does anybody have any questions? And I do exist. Sorry, I'm just
Hey,
Thank you,
so
here.
Alex.
I
That was excellent. Feel free to unmute or drop your questions in the chat. Mark, I'm sorry if I interrupted you. Go ahead if you have a
oh,
question.
no worries whatsoever. So I actually have kind of procedural question about framing this. And so just as a background, we're in Ossining. I believe that's over 50 miles from you. Um, but we've been working on a concept for a similar program, or series of programs, with a partner institution, Metro New York, which is actually bought a property, an outdoor property near us. But as a matter of fact, I am in the unusual position of being both a librarian and a field biologist. And so I have been thinking about being kind of like the person. That being said, it is interesting to consider having, other contacts in the area as residents. And I'm just wondering what your thoughts are on that for, I guess, like the divide between like a staff member and a non-staff member and what the logistics of that might be.
Okay, that's a great question. So I think it really depends on the capacity of your library. So
Hmm.
we have people who work at our library who would be incredible naturalists in residence, but the amount of work that this requires was too much to just
Hmm.
have it be on the demand of a single staff member. And remember, lots of staff members are going to be involved in this. So, I recommend if you have limited staff capacity, you sort of have another person come into this and then run point. This is a conversation you can have about like you can even participate as sort of a co-presenter on a lot of these. But if you have like a large administration group who can like work on like budgets and staffing and you can have coverage, go for it. I think it's always great when librarians get into the field and people see your librarians outside of the library in different contexts, and that way they have a person that they connect with. However, I will say Susan was already had like a huge following, but then so many people wanted to then connect with her afterwards. And so, do you really want many people from the public to come and try to find you during your job when you're not doing this? That's really up to you.
Yeah.
But so, like, how big is your staff?
It's fairly large. I couldn't like, give you the number off the top of my head, but in my department in the adult services department, we have, I'm the only there's the manager, but then there's the myself, I'm the only full-time
Yeah,
professional librarian. Then there's
yeah,
full-time
uh,
assistants, but
yeah.
part-time
In which case,
assistants.
I would
Yeah,
highly recommend going outside of the library. I mean, this is going to take a lot of your own staff time outside of preparing these talks, these walks, these presentations, and you really need to
absolutely.
consider that. So, great question.
We got a few in the chat here. Nicole asked, did you get in touch with the Cornell Cooperative Extension for this program?
Great question. When we started it, our local cooperative extension, I think, was imploding. They had like lots of staff turnover when we were launching this, and so no. But in the future, perhaps. There's lots of people who use our library who are part of Cornell Cooperative Extension, who are all potential future naturalists in residence, but they also have like their own budgets and advocacy efforts that you really, this is a pretty big undertaking for whoever takes this on, and so they also need to have their own capacity set up to do it. But good question.
One that may have been addressed, but where did you find your naturalists?
Okay, wonderful. So the great thing about like once you start doing this, so many people will reach out to you about, who would make a really great naturalist? So and so and so and so. Um, so like we were really lucky because Bard College is right there, and so there's lots of people in the community who are doing some like really inventive things. Susan Fox Rogers was the writer in residence at Bard and just happens to be one of the top birders in the country. And I don't know what y'all were doing in 2023, but at least my algorithm said that birding was the only thing to do. And so, like, we ran a few programs with her just because one of our board members actually recommended we connected. And we had just like such an incredible turnout for those programs that we did in 2022. And so it just seemed like a natural fit for 2023. What's a really good thing that you can do after that is your naturalists, especially if they're hyper local, know a lot of other people who might not be doing that exact same topic, but will be slightly connected. And so it's really good to utilize them for recommendations. Go to your board, go to your public. You can do a call out. I mean, there's so many ways to do this. I mean, once again, Red Hook, this is where nature is. We have so many people who'd be incredible at this. It's the problem is you're trying to find someone who has the capacity to take this on. And so Susan had literally just retired the year before and was looking for something to do, and this was a great opportunity. Um, I also will say that you need to find someone who's like pretty good at writing, not only speaking, like writing. So what we had our naturalists do is write our newsletter, sort of like front intro every month that they were hosting it about who they are, what they're doing, and have them promote themselves. Once again, we're trying to make like those connections to the naturalists to then inform their connections to the library. Um, like you don't necessarily need to get a writing sample, but I would really sort of see like how they are at communicating and across different age groups. Also, they're going to be working with kids, so it's really important that you background check every single person you're working with.
Excellent. We had Elizabeth asked, how do you organize the nature walks? Do you use the library website?
Yes, so all of our nature walks were on our calendar. They were by registration only. We have Assabet, but like LibCal, any calendar, library calendar service that you have would work for this. And it was basically the same program every week. The birds change, but the location didn't. If the location changes, this is really key, especially if you're going to do it like on a regular cadence. It's really important that it's not just on your calendar, but in all of your promotions and all of your media, and you will still get people going to the wrong location. And so it's really important that everyone on staff also knows where locations change. I mean, what happened like we did not expect it during our first walk. The only way to access the Tivoli Bays is through Bard's campus, and the entire parking lot that we told everybody to park with just happened to be under construction that day that no one knew. And so things will happen. People are very gracious. So I wouldn't worry about too much, but especially if you're going to go to a location outside the library, connect with whomever is running that. Like if there's like an organization that runs it, or it's like a historic house or historic property or county lands or state lands or whatever, make sure that you have a point person there who you can connect with day of as well. Oh, also, I think I saw this in the chat. When do you start planning this? So, like, our program runs from like March through June. We have our naturalists decided in December of the year before. We do it by executive decision. So, like, I start looking in like October, November. I interview a few people, and then like get down to the final two. And usually, it's about like capacity when I say like what the commitment is. Lots of people bow out when they say, "Oh, it's all of these things." But once again, you can be really flexible. Find out what your community is really into and sort of like plan around that. If you're doing committees or you have lots of layers of bureaucracy that you have to get to, start earlier. The earlier you can, the better. Like start after your year one ends, start year two, because I know how that can go.
Do you have any recommendations for how a high school slash early college library could adapt this idea or program?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's great. I mean, our program was intergenerational by how we planned it, but I think if you're really targeting high school, early college students, you can do like some really hyper targeting to like what their specific interests are, and connect it to the curriculum that you're already developing. So like if a lot of like art community is getting into like experiential learning, and really hands-on learning. And so there's lots of opportunities to connect that built-in curriculum and just hiring someone in addition to sort of lead these structured walks. Once again, this isn't just like every Monday we're going to go for a nature walk. Like that's not this. You can do that without having a naturalist in residence. You can go do like a recycling program. You can do like a community bike ride. These are all incredible things, but like what's really key about this program is the consistency and the narrative of why you're doing this and why it's important that the library is doing this. If I said we're going to do like a story walk and a story walk, yes, but like a story time in the park, people are going to come to a story time in the park. That doesn't make that a naturalist in residence program. That's you're just once again, like nature is everywhere. It's how we interact with it. It's the questions we ask about that. And especially if your students are interested in like climate change or they're part of the sunrise movement. I mean, we just built a relationship with our local high school sunrise movement because of this program. Like it's a really good opportunity to talk about like advocacy and legislation and policy development and, how to take control, like talking to, I always recommend people go to like their zoning boards because zoning is like the biggest thing that's going to affect a lot of this. It gets into the nitty gritty. And like once again, these things can be like really tedious or boring. Like if you've ever been to like a zoning committee, not the most energetic, interesting thing sometimes, but like it's the meat and potatoes that really affect how all of your neighbors are going to live and thrive or not thrive in their community and who has a say and how that works. And all of that is how we're controlling nature, um, for, housing, recreation, business. Really great opportunity to explore that too.
We have another question. Any recommendations for where to look for funding grants for this program in particular?
Yes. So I just saw a note about participatory budgeting. Incredible. Everyone should be getting on the participatory budgeting train. But yes, so local foundations are always great. I would always say like go to your town, county, or village if you're in New York, because we're a part of like a village, a town, a county. Because they might have funding for something like this. I mean, a lot of them might be targeted for like kids or might for like older adults, and you can always shape your program based on what those grant opportunities are. Um, but also, the Sustainable Libraries Initiative, I'm sure, has like grants that come up around this topic constantly. So like sign up to be on their newsletter. Check in if you're part of a library system. There's so many like grants right now for like quote unquote sustainability initiatives. All of this can be targeted to those grants. But what I really like to do is find like a local family foundation because once again, it's not a lot of startup funds. And you can do a lot with very little.
We have a question. What degree of continuity have you experienced with the participants in these programs? Mark was saying, oh, sorry. One thing I'm considering is a series of citizen science programs where participants would be encouraged to continue making observations on their own, which for a set period of time would be monitored in a central project. Wondering how likely it is that at least some patrons would interact in this way.
From personal experience, not very. So like for our Monday morning talks, we had like 4 or 5 people who came every single week, and we had 10 to 15 people who either only came once or came a few times because people's schedules shift. The good thing, like citizen science is so important and like everyone should be doing it. This is like a great opportunity to really address this in your community on how like we can like if anybody's not connected to eBird, or am I blanking once again? My brain is sort of broken right now. But it's that like where you log your birds that you find, and it has like the hottest gossip. No, so Merlin is how you like can like find play it, and it'll tell you what the bird is. But then eBird is where you document it, and it's yes, it's logging, yes, and it's like Reddit on steroids about like no, you didn't see that Merriganser, like you're lying. They don't travel here until like March or whatever. It's like really truly incredible gossip that you should get into. Um, but you're going to be tracking, and like this is something that's not like a science experiment that everyone could like needs to do, but if someone's tracking this every week, even if it's not the same person every single time, that's still science that other people are going to use. That's valuable data. And so if you're looking for people to come like every week to do a project, especially like kids who have like competing priorities, or adults with like competing priorities, that's really difficult. Um, but if you're going to be doing something where like just consistent data logging is part of this, I think that's a brilliant idea, and that's really helping your local like science communities. Like, you know, when you're looking about like bird migrations, when are birds coming to your local community? When are they leaving? Are they staying longer? Is it because of food access? Is it because of trees? So you could do another program on trees and what type of habitat is good for birds. I mean, there's so many like opportunities here, and I think like the more you can connect with other organizations and other partner groups, that will also open you up to like future funding opportunities. Like we were able to build a native pollinator garden built based on our Naturalist-in-Residence program. We showed that we could be successful in hosting something like this. And it really shows that connection to other to like granting organizations like, oh, this is something that they do consistently, they do it well, and they're really good at promoting it. Like this is something you're going to have to market, especially if it's brand new, because you're going to be investing like for smaller libraries, a significant budget and staff time. So like make sure you're marketing this right. Like don't just do a little Canva slide. Like if you need to hire someone to do it nice, do it nice, even though I did my whole presentation in Canva, not to knock it.
I think we got all the questions in the chat. Unless anybody has any others or would like to unmute, go ahead.
I'll
Okay,
say,
so
just say thanks so much. And I think you've got a lot of people who are going to be starting a naturalist, and you've inspired a lot of us. So thank you again.
yeah, I mean, if you want to call it Red Hook's Naturalist in Residence program at your library, you're welcome to give us credit. But once again, like, steal these ideas, shape it for your specific community. But like, this is great. I'm really easy to be found. Director at redhooklibrary.org. Reach out anytime if you have questions. And just like finally, don't overthink it. It's a great program. It sort of can like breed itself. And have fun. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. Much appreciated. Thank you, everyone, for joining us this afternoon. And yes, we'll see you next time. Happy holidays to all.
Take care, Alex. Get better soon.
Yes,
Thank
feel better.
you. Thank you.